Hey, it's Tacticus again, and since the Mythic missions will be unlocked for all characters you have at Blue Star starting on the 20th of August, we should probably have a look at those Mythic missions, how they will work, and some examples of missions for those characters you will probably have at Blue Star already. Well, before the Mythic update, there was little reason to Blue Star a character. The stat boosts were pretty minor for the effort it took to get them there. Now it might actually be worthwhile, as you need the Blue Star to get the Mythic Mission Chain for each character and to finally ascend to Mythic, which will allow you to get your characters to the Adamantium rank after Diamond 3. It also allows your characters to get to level 55 for now and eventually level 65 to further increase their abilities, and it allows them to equip Mythic level equipment, which, due to the new progression of equipment strength, is better than Legendary 11 items, and some characters have special Mythic equipment giving them special abilities, a bit like an additional passive. The Mythic quest will tremendously help you to get your character to the new rarity. Every mission chain consists out of 5 parts, each part giving you 4 Mythic shards and 2 Mythic orbs. Fulfilling them all gets you everything you need for an ascension. Of course, each mission also gives the standard 25 mission experience, and the first one gives you 1 Mythic experience book, the second and fourth one give 250,000 coins each, the third one gives 5 Mythic badges of the character's alliance, and the fifth one gives you a Mythic equipment item. Most of the time it will be a crit booster, but some characters will get a relic instead. I wonder whether this will change to the relic once the characters get one, in which case it might be a good idea to actually not do the quests now. But seeing as already triggered character unlock missions didn't change with the update, they give more shards now, if you have the mission it is probably too late for that yet. Most of the missions follow a certain pattern. Often the first mission needs you to defeat a certain number of a specified enemy in one battle. Like the Snotflogga needs to defeat 12 enemies of the diminutive trait in a single battle. Those will test your knowledge of the game, as you need to find a level with the appropriate enemy type and number. They will often work in campaigns, campaign events, or even hero release events and quests. Modes where you can control what enemies you face and where the enemies don't necessarily have to be strong. Especially if you need to kill a high number of a certain enemy type, you need to make sure your target character is the one doing the actual killing. Try to avoid summoning or overwatch to not foil your own plans. Mission 2 often needs you to do a certain amount of damage in one turn, or heal or repair it in the case of healers and mechanics. Those are a stat check. If you have a character at Blue Star and Stone 1, you're not only doing some weird stuff, but you will also not be able to do those missions. Your character will probably have to be at least Diamond 1 to do this. You will often need a lot of buffs to pull these off and know your characters and its passive and active well. While Mission 1 will often be done in campaigns and campaign events because it makes the enemies you face more controllable, Mission 2 will most often be done in arena or guild raids for the high level enemies with a lot of health you can do damage against. Early bosses in guild raids still sport a lot of health combined by not that much armor, so those can be a good idea to tackle. In guilds with a pretty narrow player level this is fair, while in guilds with a pretty varied player base it might be bad form to snipe away the easy bosses from your guildmates. In Arena, you can choose your enemies depending on what you're trying to achieve, and in both modes you can build a team mixed from all alliances to suit your needs. I feel those are the most difficult missions, so we need to have a good grasp on who we can call on for help. I'd sort them by alliance, as sometimes I think Onslaught or Salvage Run could actually work depending on the level you're on. Your buff characters fall into 3 categories. Increasing your damage stat itself unconditionally, which can be handy for healing as well for dealing damage. Increasing your number of hits, which helps with damage and dealing more hits, which will be relevant later, and increasing the damage for certain attack types and against certain enemies. I mainly keep those apart, as only the first category can help with healing. Many buffs depend on certain conditions being met, so won't necessarily be easy to pull off. On screen you can see which character can provide which boon, sorted by alliance, because should you hunt for certain enemies or in legendary event tracks for example, you will be bound by that restriction. Aethana gives a higher crit chance and some extra damage, especially for Eldari. Onshi gives a damage boost, but only every 3 rounds. Isaac enhances damage for fighters stepping onto his decoys. Abaddon's damage buff only works for chaos units adjacent to him. Kalga just enhances damage, no strings attached, to adjacent units, with Imperial units getting an extra bonus. Dante enhances rapid assault and flying units damage, and units at half health or below also gain an extra hit for melee attacks. Gulgots using his active provides +1 hit to orcs and other units starting next to him when he uses the active, but only to normal melee attacks. Those will also do more damage. Shadowsun gives extra damage for ranged non-psychic attacks and has a chance for effective fighters to deal an extra hit, with it only being guaranteed after 4 full rounds. Bastilian gives an extra hit for all ranged attacks adjacent to him, and also for melee attacks of chaos characters. His active makes chaos fighters deal an additional extra hit with their melee attacks within contagion area. Apraxas makes ranged chaos fighters and demons next to him deal an extra psychic hit. After using his active, Yasagor will grant a Psyker an extra hit. Trajan will enhance damage against enemies that stand next to one of your fighters that used an ability this turn. If he's also adjacent to them, you will also score an additional hit with non-normal attacks against them. Toriad provides an extra hit for friendly units within 2 hexes for melee attacks. Truvius gives an extra hit against fighters he previously attacked, excluding Psykers, who can't benefit from his buff. Actus can make a mechanical character attack a second time in a turn, which basically is more hits in that round too. Darkstrider's passive makes adjacent units deal more damage with ranged attacks against enemies with a marker light. Xibia can choose a unit to deal an extra percentage of damage against. Ahriman increases psychic damage against units standing on fire hexes, the fire he can provide himself. Chaos units gain even more damage when affected. Ascor gives a bonus damage for melee attacks to adjacent chaos units, depending on how often he was attacked this fight. The Exorcist active can give a character an extra percentage of damage if the target is standing on a fire hex. Azoth will increase damage for non-normal attacks. Helprecht provides extra damage and pierce for melee attacks for 2 rounds with his active. Atlakoya increases damage against Psykers within 2 hexes. Azrael gives out bonus Overwatch damage. Asmodai makes units deal extra damage with melee and Overwatch attacks against a chosen target. Tangida can enhance the damage of mechanical units that are next to him against units with reduced armor. So either bring a Death Guard or the Plague Burst Crawler if you don't want to rely on his toxic attacks. So there's the list. Some of the options are of course less than stellar, some are good. You might not have built them all, so have a look at what you have available and what you can use to bolster your ability to fulfill those missions. A lot of those missions are only hard because they have to be done in 1 round. There's one other way though. Some tournament arena rule sets and survival events, as well as now some incursions, feature power-ups. Those could be a tremendous help during those missions, but you might have to wait some time for the right one to come along and will most often have to put your goal of fulfilling the mission above playing optimally. Still, the plus 100% damage, plus 2 hits, and plus 4 hits in melee power-ups can come in clutch in a lot of those missions, and during survival you can potentially collect multiple of those. Mission 3, needs you to summon or overkill units, which should be an easy enough grind. It takes longer for characters like Gibbascrapz, who can only summon once per game, but faster for others that summon indefinitely, like Snotflogga. Luckily, the numbers reflect that. Gibba needs only 15 tanks summoned, and Snotflogga needs 200 grots. If you want to do it quicker, you can bring on Chi to use an active a second time for a game. Mission 4 is often more difficult again. It needs you to either do a certain number of hits in a certain turn, defeat a set amount of enemies in a turn, or defeat a number of enemies under the influence of a buff or debuff. Those are hard, as only a small amount of characters are even able to enhance the hits characteristic of characters, and will be quite convoluted to do. The defeat enemies missions, we at least know that defeat encompasses enemies fleeing from battle fatigue, which is the only thing making some of them even possible. Those need you to know your character again. Like Maladus, who needs to defeat 7 enemies in one turn. Maladus can kill 3 enemies in one turn easily, but the other 4 will have to flee. Sometimes you need a few tries to do these. Battle fatigue is random after all. Sometimes you need to use your characters active, in which case you will have to do another battle if you need to try again. Most often you will need to do this in campaigns, as the enemies are weak and you can ensure to try it on respawning enemies to enable you multiple tries to make enough enemies flee. The third variance of these needs you to defeat enemies that have a certain buff active. For those you will need to find the enemy in the campaign providing his buff. Luckily, a lot of those are more generous and only need you to kill those enemies in one or over the course of multiple battles. Mission 5 is actually the easiest one of them all. A pure number check. Do a certain amount of damage, sometimes of a special damage type. You can just slowly collect that damage over using the character in whatever mode you like. You can do it faster by buffing the damage by any of the discussed ways, but it's not necessary. 2 and 4 are the head scratchers most of the time for me. If you got number 4 done, you will be over the hump and will just need to farm the mission to its conclusion. Needing you to have those high numbers was probably done intentionally. You might have a Stone 1 legendary character, but having a Stone 1 mythic character will need a lot of farming from other sources as the Rogue Trader, Blessed Requisitions and Onslaught. I dare say, it's not the intended way. You're supposed to actually master your characters during the quest to actually feel like you earned their promotion. Now, if you liked my video so far, I'd be elated if you would consider using my referral code BAD60ado to help me out in-game. You immediately get 100 Blackstone for doing so, while I will get various rewards depending on level up milestones you reach. Should you need more resources, you can also use my code on screen to get some energy and carry on shards. Finally, I want to have a look at some examples. We could of course have gone with guild raid teams, but not everyone needed them at Blue Star for them to be at Diamond 3. Instead, we're going to look at the ones that you are most likely to have at Blue Star. The classic Archeotech farming characters. All normal shards you get for them are still converted to Archeotech and can be used to buy things. Some people were mad that they had Blue Starred those characters and used their orbs for them instead for actually good characters. We can argue if the farming characters are even bad, only a few of them are, I'd say. Now that the Blue Star has importance, I wish they had used them on their meta picks. I still maintain that having a few characters to get Archeotech is incredibly important. Even more so now that you can get all mythic materials you could need in the Rogue Trader shop. Now it has been expanded. One of the characters I'm speaking of is Snotflogga, who you'll get 4 shards of a day from doing supply run for 28 Archeotech a week on a decent character. Snappawrecka will give you 21 Archeotech a week, at least if you manage to open all the chests in Arena. Aethana gives 2 or 3 shards a day for fulfilling the daily mission. Maladus you get shards of in the chest after defeating a common to epic guild raid boss, for a total of 34 over 2 weeks. Calandis is in tournament arena chests for 12 shards total, plus some based on your final rank. The number of tournament arenas in a given battle pass may fluctuate a bit, so your income may vary. Lastly, Gibbascrapz gives you 3 shards 2 times a week as a lock-in bonus. Now for the missions. Go in the order described above, but feel free to jump to the one you have at Blue Star. I comment on where to find the appropriate enemies and what to look for whenever that applies. But for the damage per round quests, please just refer to the buff characters table I gave you before and see who will help you personally the most. Snotflogga first needs you to defeat 12 enemies with the diminutive trait in one battle. The only enemies in game that have that trait are Crots, so going to the Archetypes campaign and killing a few of those seems easy. Since your summons don't count as the character defeating someone, as you'd think, we need to not spawn our own Crots. For this, go to a level with a lot of Crots, let them multiply a bunch, and then only attack Crots with all hexes around them blocked off, so we can't spawn our own little helpers. Archetypes 7 for example has 9 Crots, and giving a common upgrade with the new drop chances, the opportunity cost isn't too high. Elite 6 also has 3 Crots you can let multiply for some time before tackling your mission. This is the easiest way, but you could also go to Arena, wait for a Snotflogga and kill an opposing Snotflogga's Crots with him. Mission 2 needs you to do 10,000 damage in one turn with Snotflogga. Mission 3 simply needs you to summon 200 units of Snotflogga, which should be easy enough. 4, as said, is a head scratcher again, but this time it's pretty straightforward. Defeat 2 enemies that have the Crusade of Wrath effect with Snotflogga in one battle. This effect is handed out by Helprecht and lasts 2 rounds, and luckily, your rounds count too, so you just need to go to Arctarius or Arctarius Elite campaign, wait for Helprecht to use his active, and kill 2 enemies in 2 rounds. As your Snotflogga will be pretty strong by now, this is trivial in the base campaign. Mission 5 expects you to do a total of 200,000 damage. Snappawrecka 1 wants you to defeat 4 enemies in one battle, while Snappawrecka is taunted. This is problematic. If you're taunted, you can only attack the enemy that taunted, and can neither run away nor use their active. Not a lot of units can taunt. The only consistent way that comes to mind is Arctarius 60 with Jäger. If you kill him, the effect will end, and you can't finish the mission. There are no regular enemies that can taunt to get you to do it. I found an unusual solution. Snapper will have to die. Go into the Jäger level and don't set someone up there. If Jäger were to taunt you, otherwise you'd be stuck. You want a bunch of surrounding fighters. Set up your Snapper so only he can be reached by Jäger and draw the other orcs back. Now we want him taunted and skip turns until Snapper is defeated. With the relatively low health of enemies in this level, his explosion will kill a few of them, fulfilling the mission. You don't need to win the battle to fulfill the mission, but if you want to, better kill everything not engaged with Snapper so another orc survives. Mission 2 is a straightforward deal 12,000 damage in one turn. Mission 3 is overkilling 100 enemies. Mission 4 wants you to defeat 8 enemies with Snappawrecka in one turn. While sounding harsh, this is pretty easy actually, if your active is high enough. It deals 6 hits, plus 2 for each time Snapper got repaired, and if an enemy is killed, the leftover hits are distributed between other enemies in range 3 around Snapper. Just search for an easy campaign battle with at least 9 enemies. Shoot 1 so Snapper loses health, repair him with Gibber and position Snapper in the middle, then trigger the active and kill 8 enemies at once. Mission 5 needs you to deal 50,000 damage with chain attacks. It's a simple case of grinding by doing melee attacks with Snapper wherever you like. Aethana 1 starts out difficult, with you needing to defeat 3 enemies on fire hexes in one turn. The only way to defeat multiple enemies in one turn with Aethana is her active, which should be appropriately leveled for this. As Elchion's passive only applies to normal attacks, he can't help out here. In the campaign, you can't set fire reliably. Going to a level with guardsmen and have a few flee will hardly work. Maybe in arena. The best way to set fire without potentially killing the enemies is the Forge Fiend. Another character with a weaker melee attack like Ahriman or Abraxas can set fire to the 3rd hex in line. If you find an enemy with a Biowar, you can wait for the active to trigger, which would already align 2 enemies, and then use the Forge Fiend to set fire to those hexes. If there's a 3rd enemy aligned, weaken it with any fire setter and hope your Aethana does enough damage with her active to kill that enemy as well. Mission 2 needs you to deal 9000 damage in one turn. 3 is just overkilling 100 enemies again. Mission 4 wants you to defeat 12 enemies with the Weaver of Fate traits in one battle. Since every 1000 Suns fighter has that trait, you can do it anywhere in the campaigns, like Sim Hunt 44 for example, which has exactly 12 fighters in it. Level 30 against Abraxas could also work, if he summons enough demons. Splitting Horrors can additionally help to kill more enemies. If you find an enemy with an Akimatos in arena, you can also just bring your Biowar and let him kill the Spore Mines with a ranged attack for a potentially endless supply of blue horrors. Mission 5 just needs you to do 200,000 damage with Aethana. Maladus needs you to defeat 7 enemies with the Resilient trait with Maladus in one battle. The only enemy type with Resilient is the Electro Priest. Luckily, you can find 9 of them in the Death Guard campaign event on level 13. Extremist 13, if you want to get a drop chance for the reward more consistently, also features exactly 7 Electro Priests. 2 needs you to deal 15,000 damage in one turn. I think a high passive, especially in combination with some sort of damage buffers or a high active, can help here if you find strong enough opponents. Mission 3 just needs 100 overkills. Mission 4 is defeating 7 enemies in one turn with Maladus. The keyword here is defeat, so fleeing will count. As Maladus' passive allows him to kill up to 3 enemies a turn, go to a level with Boxcasters and let them crowd the field. If you kill 3 enemies with at least 4 adjacent ones, there is a decent chance you will be able to kill 3 and make 4 more flee. If there's not enough running away, try again. Since you don't need your active for that, you can try until enough of them are dead. Mission 5 again is just doing damage, this time 200,000 again. Calandis will need you to score 5 hits with her in one turn. If this was phrased as doing it in one round, that would actually be decently easy, only needing to increase your hits by 1 and using your passive when attacked. Since it must be done in one turn though, we need to increase Calandis' hits by more than just 1. Her passive scores 2 hits, so this might be the easier one to improve. Since some of the extra hit buffs only apply to melee and some only to ranged, this is actually really hard and requires a lot of characters to do, like Trajan using his active next to Calandis, Toriad standing by and Vitruvius hitting the enemy first. Then that enemy has to be adjacent to both Calandis and Trajan and attack Calandis in melee. Easy peasy, I guess? You know what, wait for Tournament Arena and pick up a melee hits power up for 4 extra hits. Mission 2 needs 12,000 damage to be done in one turn. 3 needs 80 enemies to be defeated during Overwatch. 4 needs 2 enemies under the influence of attempted possession to be defeated. Attempted possession only lasts for the enemy's turn, and Aethana's passive will defend herself against their ally. This is a bit convoluted, and it's only possible since we can do it over 2 battles. The only consistent way to find a Tomachos, as no one ever takes him to arena, is to go to the campaign and position an ally in a way that Tomachos can reach them and not Calandis herself. You then hope for Tomachos to target that character and Calandis to kill them. Albion won't help you as this is not a normal attack, so he's probably the bait. We wouldn't want the two Phoenix Lords' hideous visages to reduce Calandis' damage. Aethana can stand by for the damage buff. Mission 5 is the first one that needs damage to be done in melee and in ranged attacks counted separately. Gibbascrapz needs you to defeat 10 enemies with him in one battle, while being suppressed. In the Octavius campaign, the only way to do this is being hit with Burkhardt's ranged attack, but there's only 6 enemies in that battle. Elite 8 only has 9 enemies, which also doesn't help. The normal aggressors there can also suppress you, so we need an elite battle with at least 10 enemies, preferably an early one, so Gibba can actually kill something while suppressed, because killing those aggressors with your physical damage profile will be hard. Octarius Elite 7 might work, as the reproducing crots there could provide with a lot of enemies if you can keep those enemies apart. Or you can just go to Arena, search for a Biowar and hit yourself with a low level Malleus each round. Stupid? Yes. Will it work? Probably. Mission 2 needs you to heal or repair 9500 health with Gibbascrapz in one turn. If you have a level 50 passive Khalgar, that can be done with a Diamond 1 Gibba for example. Mission 3 needs you to summon 15 units of Gibba. Pretty tedious, but you can theoretically use On-Chi in Arena to make it quicker. Mission 4 needs you to score 9 hits with Gibba in one turn. Since he can only deal 4 hits normally, you will probably need to wait for an event with power-ups to come around. I wonder if the cyborg body parts would help here if you had Actus to trigger a second attack. That would be 8 hits already. Even with the melee power-up, you will need another 1 hit to be scored though, so you additionally need to buff your hits by 1 with, for example, Gulgord's Infection Tournament Arena. Mission 5 needs you to deal 100,000 damage. As a reward, you'll get the cyborg body parts, which makes Gibba pretty attractive to push through the missions as a guaranteed way to get those. It's one of the relics I am most excited for. To recap, every character gets a mission chain for their mythic ascension once they reach the blue star. The mission chain gives you 500,000 gold, everything you need for the ascension, 5 ability badges, a mythic experience book, and a mythic equipment, sometimes even a relic. Mission 1 and 4 are generally the most difficult ones, testing your knowledge of the game and the character, while Mission 2 is a stat check, and Mission 3 and 5 are just grinding. For some missions you will need to wait until a campaign event or tournament arena roll around to do them most efficiently. Those modes might be recurring events, but this is somewhat frustrating. Especially the stat checks need either big investment into the character at hand or a good set of supporting buff heroes. I haven't found anything that you absolutely needed a specific other character for, but sometimes that can spare you the waiting time. With this, I close today's topic. If you watched till the end and like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel and maybe even leave me a like or a comment. Tell me which character you will get to Mythic first and what mission of him is the hardest one for you. Do you like those missions or would you want them to be even more creative? If you really liked it, you can also share my video around. We're close to 2000 subscribers now, which will result in a celebration code, and it would mean a lot to me. If we're already at 2000 when you see this, let's work on the 3000. You can watch more of my videos on screen. How about my video on fulfilling missions in general, for example? I'd slowly have to go about updating some of my overanalyzing Tacticus videos, so stay tuned for that. You'll hear from me in the next video. Have a great day.